The silence had begun on a Tuesday, almost unnoticed. At first, it was a minor glitch in the network, satellites losing signal, some temporary outages in communication channels. But as the hours passed and nothing returned, a deep unease spread. Within 24 hours, major news outlets were reporting unexplained interference with global communications. Experts were baffled. By the second day, every attempt to re-establish contact with space stations failed. The world's greatest minds, the engineers, the scientists, the data analysts, sat in front of their blinking screens, watching the messages bounce back with nothing but empty, static-filled space. It was around the fourth day when the first major national security alarm went off. The United States Space Agency's Deep Space Communications Hub, usually humming with data, sent a single cryptic message to Earth's military high command. Signal lost. Cannot reach humanity. General Isaac Carter, head of the Pentagon's Strategic Defense Unit, read the report and felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen the irregularities in space before, solar flares, cosmic disturbances, but this was different. The silence was too absolute, too pervasive. The satellites were silent, the radio towers unresponsive, and even encrypted military communications had failed. He immediately called a code red alert, but the silence stretched out, making it clear this was no ordinary event. "Where the hell is everyone?" muttered Lieutenant Kayla Daniels, a senior communications officer, as she worked her console late into the night. The satellites that Earth depended on for everything, from weather forecasts to military reconnaissance, stopped transmitting. Ships in orbit reported their systems shutting down. The few terrestrial connections that still functioned were vague and fragmented. Whispers of a power outage, a city blacking out, but nothing concrete. Across the globe, humans were growing desperate, searching for explanations. Meanwhile, far from Earth, a race of alien beings known as the Aethar, who had been observing humanity for decades, saw this event as a sign of the perfect opportunity. The Aethar had always viewed humans as a curiosity, a primitive species, brimming with potential but wildly unpredictable. They'd been preparing for an invasion, waiting for Earth's technology to reach a threshold that would make it a worthwhile conquest. But now this unexpected silence, this sudden disappearance of all communication, looked like something entirely different. It seemed too perfect. "Earth is ours," said Zerath, commander of the Aethar fleet, as he stared out from his warship's bridge, a vast expanse of stars twinkling beyond. "Their silence is our victory." The Aethar had long assumed the humans would resist their invasion, but they had underestimated one crucial fact. Humans had never fought by the rules. Back on Earth, though, no one knew that the silence was merely the calm before a storm. The blackout was no random accident. It was a deliberate act, set in motion by people who had known this day would come. Earth's leaders were gone, hidden away in secret underground bunkers waiting. But the truth was, humanity wasn't in hiding. It was preparing. The aliens had misread the silence, and in doing so, they had made their first critical mistake. As the days blurred into weeks, the world below began to feel the consequences of the silence. The streets of major cities were empty, devoid of the usual bustle of commerce and routine. Communications were still down, and the global stock markets plunged into chaos. But for many, the real threat wasn't the economic collapse. It was the eerie, oppressive stillness that had taken over everything. Governments, already scrambling to deal with the confusion, began to acknowledge the truth. Something far worse than a technical glitch had occurred. A shadowy group of world leaders had convened in secret bunkers, away from public eyes, and now communicated only through encrypted networks, monitoring every movement, every signal, every potential sign of an alien incursion. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that this silence was no accident. It was part of a plan. In a forgotten corner of the world, an unlikely team of humans had been preparing for this very moment. Under the command of a once obscure officer, Commander Alex Stone, the human resistance had been quietly organizing for years. Stone had long suspected that humanity's isolation on the planet wouldn't last forever. The more advanced civilizations in the galaxy, those capable of moving through the stars, had taken an interest in Earth. And their interest wasn't purely scientific. With every year that passed, it became more and more apparent the humans would eventually be targeted. His team, an amalgamation of military tacticians, engineers, and hackers, had quietly prepared for an invasion, all the while working under the radar of Earth's various governments. They had studied alien technology from the few encounters with extraterrestrial artifacts Earth had experienced. They'd reverse-engineered weapons, learned alien languages, and infiltrated every communications channel. Their task was simple. If Earth was ever invaded, they would be ready. As Commander Stone sat at a secluded military base in the Rocky Mountains, he reviewed the data on the alien fleet, now en route to Earth. His eyes narrowed at the schematic of the Brektar motherships, the vanguard of the alien assault. The Aethar fleet had been watching Earth for years, but this invasion, this unprovoked strike, came much sooner than expected. He had underestimated their urgency. "This is it," Stone muttered to his second-in-command, Major Samira Hayes, who stood beside him, reviewing the same map. "They're coming, and we're not going to make it easy for them." But while Stone and his team prepared for the worst, across the globe, the resistance had already taken the first steps. Elijah Cruz, a former cybersecurity expert, had hacked into the alien satellite network, discovering a series of vulnerabilities in their communication systems. These weaknesses were not obvious, but they were there, and Elijah, who had once been a lone wolf hacker, playing games in the dark corners of the internet, now had a purpose greater than himself. He pushed his glasses up, his fingers flying over the keyboard. A small smile tugged at his lips as the encrypted message went through. One by one, the alien systems began to glitch, and the first signs of disruption appeared in their fleet's communication channels. "Let's make them think we're already gone," he said to the team. "This silence will be their downfall." But even as the first steps were taken, no one had yet fully grasped the scope of what was about to unfold. The aliens, watching from the stars, believed their victory was assured. What they didn't know was that Earth's silence wasn't a sign of submission. It was a deliberate strategy, and humanity was about to turn the tables. They had underestimated one thing. Humans weren't just survivors. They were fighters. The Aethar fleet continued its march toward Earth, confident that their silence had signaled an easy conquest. But as the first alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, they were met with unexpected resistance. It was small at first, minor disruptions to their ships' navigation systems, a few misfires in their targeting systems. But these glitches, small and seemingly inconsequential, began to add up. On the ground, the resistance was already in motion. The global network of human cells, now connected through covert communication channels, was preparing to strike. Major Samira Hayes, once an operations officer for the United States Army, stood at the helm of the Resistance's main command center, reviewing live feeds of the alien fleet's movements. Her military training had been invaluable, but the Resistance's most crucial advantage wasn't just tactical, it was the human spirit. Where the aliens relied on rigid, predictable patterns, Humanity's unpredictability was their weapon. "We're going to hit them where it hurts," Hayes said, her voice steady, though the tension in her eyes spoke volumes. "This isn't just a military operation. This is an intelligence war. We know their systems inside and out." With every passing day, the resistance moved to disrupt the invaders at every turn. Earth's scattered underground groups, coordinated by the resistance, sabotaged key alien outposts, ensuring the Aethar fleet had no safe harbour. Power grids were attacked, alien radar systems scrambled. In a daring move, a team of resistance fighters, led by Mara Simmons, infiltrated an alien communications relay station hidden in the Canadian Rockies, causing massive disruptions in the Aethar's ability to communicate across their vast fleet. The damage was catastrophic, forcing the aliens to scramble to re-establish control. Back in space, the first confrontation occurred. A small squadron of Earth's fighters, equipped with alien technology they had hijacked from their previous encounters, engaged an Aethar patrol. The resistance pilots, led by the fierce Captain Riley Ashford, flew with the precision and desperation of people fighting for survival. They had no illusions about their chances, but they made up for their lack of numbers with cunning and sheer willpower. As the alien ships advanced toward Earth's major cities, Ashford's squadron launched a surprise attack, targeting the Aethar's vulnerable supply vessels. They were fast, agile, and familiar with the landscape. The alien ships, far larger and more technologically advanced, were slower to respond. Within hours, several key supply ships were destroyed or disabled, forcing the Aethar fleet into defensive posture. Elijah Cruz, working from a hidden underground base in the Nevada desert, intercepted alien communications that revealed the Aethar were beginning to suspect something was wrong. The silence they had once thought a sign of victory was now starting to feel like a trap. They had miscalculated terribly. "They think we're still weak," Cruz muttered to himself as he decrypted more alien transmissions. "We've got them on the run." But while the Aethar were distracted, Commander Alex Stone knew that this was only the beginning. Earth's silence had thrown them off balance, but the real fight was just starting. And the aliens were about to realize that humanity was far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. As the days wore on, the Aethar began to realize that the Earth they had expected to conquer was not the same world they had been observing. Instead of the weak, unorganized species they had anticipated, they found themselves facing a well-coordinated resistance, fueled by the desperation of a planet fighting for survival. Their initial confidence had faltered, and now, as their command structure scrambled to regain control, Earth's forces were taking bold action. Commander Alex Stone watched from his underground command center as the resistance mounted its largest coordinated offensive yet. Across the world, the remnants of humanity's military forces, some organized, others independent but driven by the same cause, had begun striking back. The attacks were swift, precise, and devastating, targeting key alien infrastructure while leaving no room for retaliation. The world's resistance had learned quickly from the mistakes of the past. Gone were the days of scattered, disconnected attacks. Now every strike was part of a larger, synchronized campaign. Under the guidance of Commander Stone and his team, humanity had learned to leverage every advantage: alien tech, guerrilla tactics, and above all, the element of surprise. At the center of this effort was a daring plan to cripple the Aethar fleet's ability to launch further attacks. The Resistance had discovered that the Aethar's ships, despite their technological superiority, relied heavily on a central communications network to coordinate their operations. Without it, their vast fleet would be crippled, unable to execute precise maneuvers or launch coordinated assaults. Stone's mission was simple: destroy the alien command ship, the Karakith, the mothership that controlled the Uthar fleet. With it out of commission, the Resistance hoped to throw the Invaders into disarray, buying Earth precious time to regroup and mount a defense. "Let's make this a war they won't forget," Stone said, staring at the holographic map of the Uthar fleet. "This time, we're the ones hunting them." The operation to destroy the Karakith would be nothing short of suicidal. It would require infiltrating a heavily guarded alien base on the moon, where the mothership's control center was stationed. Only a small team of specially trained soldiers would be able to get close enough to plant the explosives needed to take it down. Among those soldiers was Major Samira Hayes, who volunteered without hesitation. "This is what we've been training for," she said, locking eyes with Stone. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we make it count." Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, Elijah Cruz worked tirelessly to crack the encryption systems in the alien fleet's command channels. He had managed to hack into several key Uthar relay stations, causing intermittent blackouts that further fragmented their efforts. But this mission was different. If the Resistance was going to succeed, they needed to ensure that the Karakith could be attacked without the Aethar being able to call reinforcements. In the shadow of the great alien mothership, humanity's fight for survival was about to enter its most dangerous phase. The Resistance was ready to strike at the heart of the enemy, but they knew this would be the ultimate test of their resolve. One wrong move, and Earth's last hope would be extinguished. The countdown had begun. The silence, it seemed, had truly been a weapon, and now it was humanity's turn to roar. The Aethar fleet was no longer moving with the smooth, practiced precision they had once enjoyed. Communications had become a patchwork of static and disjointed signals. Alien patrols were slipping out of formation. Their once imposing mothership, the Karakith, was now the weak link in the chain, vulnerable to a devastating strike. The Resistance was not just surviving, they were becoming a true threat to the Uthar's dominance. But the aliens were not about to fold easily. In response to the mounting chaos, the Aethar leadership, led by Xerath, activated their last resort, a weapon that could wipe Earth off the map in a matter of hours. The Star Annihilator was a colossal doomsday device, a mass energy converter capable of harnessing the power of a dying star. The Uthar had built it as a contingency plan, should any species on their path show resistance worthy of eradication. Hidden in a remote sector of their fleet, it had been designed to disintegrate entire planets with a focused, destructive pulse. And now, with their plans faltering, the Uthar had initiated its countdown. Xerath stood on the bridge of the Karakith, his 6 dark eyes scanning the readings of the weapon. His voice was cold, commanding, but beneath it there was a faint tremor of frustration. He had underestimated the humans. And now their insolence would be repaid with fire. Prepare the weapon. The Earth will be reduced to ash before they even realize what's coming. His tone was final, but even as he spoke, a part of him knew this wasn't the end of the story. The weapon, designed to be fired from an enormous station orbiting the planet, was situated in a heavily guarded system on the outskirts of the Uthar fleet. The countdown had begun, and with each passing second, humanity's time was running out. Back on Earth, Commander Alex Stone and his team knew what they had to do. The Star Annihilator had to be destroyed before it fired. The problem was that they had no idea how to get to it. The weapon's location was shrouded in layers of alien encryption and guarded by an entire fleet of warships. To make matters worse, the Uthar had re-established communications between their various battle groups. The Resistance was no longer a thorn in their side. It was a full-scale insurgency. "I don't like this," Stone muttered as he paced in front of the holographic map of the enemy fleet. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and we're racing a clock. But we can't give up. Not an option, Major Samira Hayes replied, as she gathered a team of elite soldiers around the war table. We've got one shot at this, Commander. We infiltrate the fleet, plant the explosives, and get out before they know what hit them. Meanwhile, Elijah Cruz, who had been working non-stop from the Resistance's underground base, made a breakthrough. The encryption protecting the star annihilator was complex, but not impenetrable. After days of cracking codes and deciphering alien algorithms, he had found the key, a backdoor channel hidden in the Aether's communication protocols. "I've got it," he said, his fingers flying over the console. "We'll have access to the weapons control systems in 20 minutes. You'll have your shot." Stone's voice was steady but urgent. "Make sure that backdoor stays open. We need every second we can get." As the Resistance geared up for their final assault, the weight of their mission settled over them. If they succeeded, Earth would have a chance. If they failed, the planet would be no more. Time was running out. The silence had given way to war, and the world's fate now rested in the hands of the few brave enough to face the firestorm head-on. The battle for humanity's survival was about to reach its deadliest moment. The countdown to the activation of the star annihilator ticked relentlessly downward, echoing in the minds of everyone on Earth. For every minute that passed, humanity drew closer to its extinction. The Ilthar had pulled no punches. This was their final solution, their way of ensuring Earth's defiance would never rise again. But the Resistance was not ready to die without a fight. In the heart of the Rockies, Commander Alex Stone and Major Samira Hayes assembled their final team of elite operatives for the most dangerous mission of their lives: infiltrate the Aethar motherships, find the star annihilator, and destroy it. Failure wasn't an option. Stone addressed his team with a grim determination. "This is our one shot. We don't get second chances. We know where the star annihilator is, and we know it's protected by a fleet of Aethar warships. The only way in is by stealth and speed. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we get out before they even know we're there." Hayes, ever the strategist, nodded. "We've got the element of surprise on our side. We've hacked into their communications. We've learned their patterns, and we know their vulnerabilities. We can do this." The team, a mix of soldiers, engineers, and technicians, had spent the past weeks training and preparing for this moment. They were going in blind, but they had the knowledge of the Aethar fleet's weaknesses on their side. Elijah Cruz, working from a hidden control room in Nevada, would assist them remotely, ensuring their access to the Aethar's control systems. "Let's make sure they never forget the name Earth," Stone said, clapping his hands together. "We're going to take the fight to them." In the depths of space, the Aethar's fleet continued to align its ships in preparation for the final firing of the star annihilator. Xaroth, standing in the control room of the Karakith, observed the calculations on his terminal. Soon, Earth would burn. His cold, calculating gaze softened for a fraction of a second, almost imperceptibly, as he thought of the humans, their resilience, their unpredictability. But that thought was quickly swallowed by the cold, inevitable certainty of their destruction. The humans were dangerous, but they would be nothing more than a footnote in the history of his people. "We'll make sure they never rise again," Kadarath muttered, fingers dancing over the command console. The weapon's activation was mere moments away. Back on Earth, the Resistance launched its assault. Using hijacked Aethar stealth fighters, Stone's team approached the Karakith under the cover of an artificial blackout caused by Cruz's hacks. The fighters moved through space like ghosts, unseen and unnoticed by the Othar. Their target, the vulnerable docking port of the mothership, where the Star Annihilator's control center was located. Elijah Cruz's voice crackled over the comms, a moment of rare calm amidst the chaos. "You're in position. You've got 10 minutes before the Aethar detect your ships. Plant the explosives and get out. I'll handle the rest." Samira Hayes looked at the others, her expression focused. "We move in 5. Prepare for contact." They boarded the mothership as their stealth fighters glided into the hangar bay, silent and swift. As they landed, the team disembarked, quickly securing their gear and weapons. The clock was ticking, but Stone had never seen his team so determined. This was more than a mission. It was a last stand for humanity. They moved quickly through the corridors of the massive ship, each step deliberate, each turn calculated. No alarms had sounded yet, but the Aethar were close. They could feel it. And then the first alarm blared, sharp and terrifying. The Aethar were onto them. "Move!" Stone barked as his team sprinted toward the central control room of the Karakith. Their path was clear, but they knew time was running out. Elijah's voice rang in their ears again. "The Star Annihilator is almost ready to fire. You're cutting it close. Plant those charges now." Stone clenched his jaw. "We'll make it. We have to." With seconds to spare, they reached the core of the Karakith, the place where the weapon's command system pulsed like the heartbeat of a dying star. They set the charges, but just as they did, a piercing screech reverberated through the ship. The Aethar had finally tracked them down. The team was surrounded. In that moment, Stone realized they had no choice but to fight their way out. The Star Annihilator's countdown was almost over, and they couldn't let the weapon fire. Not now. Not ever. The fate of Earth depended on them surviving the next few minutes. The Aethar soldiers stormed into the chamber, their dark eyes glinting beneath their battle helmets. They moved with terrifying precision, each one a seasoned warrior trained for moments like this. Stone and his team had one last chance to complete the mission, and no room for mistakes. "Hold your ground." Stone ordered, voice steady despite the rising chaos. They had planted the charges, but they needed time for the detonation sequence to finish. Time was their most precious resource now, and every second counted. Major Samira Hayes took point, her rifle raised as she moved to the side of the control room's massive doorway, ready to engage. The team had trained for ambushes, for moments like this, and now every bit of their preparation was being put to the test. The Aethar were close, their armoured footsteps reverberating through the ship's metallic hallways. The first alien soldier appeared around the corner. Hayes fired a burst, the sound of her rifle cutting through the silence. The Aethar soldier crumpled to the ground. But before anyone could react, more of them poured into the room, firing with lethal precision. The entire chamber lit up with the brutal exchange of gunfire. Stone ducked behind a large console, narrowly avoiding a blast that tore through the space where he had just been standing. He peeped over the edge, aiming for the lead Aethar soldier who was trying to flank them. One shot. The alien collapsed, but there were more. Always more. "Elijah, we're pinned down," Stone shouted into his comm. "Can you get those charges primed for detonation now?" "Working on it," Elijah replied, his voice crackling with urgency. "You've got 3 minutes until the charges go live, but I'm having to bypass a few final encryption codes. They'd locked down the detonation sequence. Give me 1 more minute." Stone's heart pounded in his chest. The Aethar were closing in, and they had no more time to waste. He looked around at his team, Hayes, Ashford, Simmons, and the rest of the soldiers. and saw the resolve in their eyes. They were all in this together, and they would fight until the last man or woman fell. "Stay focused," Stone shouted. "We're not dying here today." He popped up from cover again, taking out 2 more Aethar soldiers before ducking back down. The team was moving in tight formation now, inching their way toward the Star Annihilator's core. They had to hold out just a little longer. The explosives were their only chance to stop the weapon from firing. A heavy thud echoed through the chamber as the door at the far end of the room slammed open, revealing a towering Aethar commander. His mandibles clicked in anger as he raised a massive energy weapon, aiming directly at Stone. Before the commander could fire, Major Hayes reacted with lightning speed. She dove, tackling the commander to the ground in a flurry of combat, twisting her knife into the alien's side. The Aethar howled in rage but couldn't stop Hayes. In seconds, he was incapacitated. "Elijah." Stone barked again, his voice desperate. "We're running out of time." A long pause stretched out, filled only with the sound of gunfire and the whir of enemy ships outside. Then Elijah's voice, filled with tense relief, came through the comms. "Charges are armed. You've got 30 seconds. Get out now." Stone glanced at his team, each of them showing signs of exhaustion, but none willing to give up. They had no more time to fight. They had to go. "Move out, now," Stone ordered, pulling back from the control room, his heart racing as he sprinted toward the extraction point. The air was thick with tension as the team navigated the ship's twisting corridors, their every step echoed by the growing sounds of the Aethar reinforcements. But they didn't stop. They couldn't. As they neared the docking bay, a massive explosion rattled the ship, sending shockwaves through the metal hull. The Star Annihilator had been triggered. The countdown was complete. But the mission was far from over. With only moments to spare, they had to escape before the entire mothership was reduced to rubble. Stone's heart thudded in his chest as he pushed the team forward. There was no going back now. The explosion was their ticket out, but it also meant the Aethar would retaliate with everything they had. Tide was up. The ship was coming apart. The team had one final fight left, and the stakes had never been higher. The explosion that rocked the Karakith was a thunderous roar, a blinding light that seemed to tear through the very heart of the alien mothership. The shockwave sent Stone and his team stumbling, their bodies thrown off balance as the corridors around them shook with the force of the blast. The Star Annihilator's core was gone. It had been destroyed. But the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. "Move! Move!" Stone barked, shaking off the dizziness. His heart raced as he grabbed Major Hayes by the arm and pulled her forward. "We need to get to the extraction point, now." They pushed through the chaos, the ship beginning to fracture around them as fires erupted in the walls. The Aethar had been taken off guard by the explosion, but it was only a matter of time before they regrouped and launched a full counterattack. The ship was damaged, badly, but it wasn't dead yet. And neither were the aliens. The team sprinted down the corridors, every footstep echoed by the rapid clattering of Aethar soldiers closing in from behind. A second wave of reinforcements had arrived, and their weapons were primed for vengeance. They knew that whoever was responsible for the destruction of the Star Annihilator had to be eliminated, no matter the cost. Stone's comm crackled again. "Elijah, what's the status on the extraction point?" "There's a fighter waiting for you." Elijah's voice came through, calm despite the urgency. "But you need to hurry. They're preparing to breach the outer hangar doors. 30 seconds. "We don't have 30 seconds. Stone shouted as he glanced back at the team. A group of Aethar soldiers turned the corner, weapons raised. He didn't hesitate. Cover the rear. Get to the fighter. Hayes, Captain Ashford, and the rest of the team spun into action. They took positions at the rear of their formation, weapons firing in quick, controlled bursts. The Aethar soldiers were relentless, but they weren't fast enough. With precise shots, the resistance team managed to push the alien forces back just long enough to make a break for the hangar. The doors to the hangar bay loomed ahead, but the way was blocked by debris from the ship's structural collapse. The pressure was mounting. Every second spent in the ship was a second closer to being trapped. "Go! Go!" Stone shouted as he pushed past the wreckage and leaped toward the waiting fighter. The sleek, black ship, a hybrid of Earth and alien technology, was the last lifeline they had. They piled into the fighter one by one, Stone and Hayes taking the lead as the rest of the team followed, barely making it into the ship before the Aethar soldiers surged forward, their weapons blazing. The hangar doors began to close with a hiss, but they weren't going to make it. Not fast enough. Ashford yelled, slamming his hand against the control panel. Stone looked back. "Fire it up. We're not waiting for them." The fighter's engines roared to life as the doors slid open just wide enough for them to squeeze through. The fighter shot out into space, narrowly avoiding a volley of Aethar fire that exploded against the hangar's outer walls. As they broke free of the mothership's atmosphere, the Karakith was already starting to crumble. The devastation they had caused was only beginning to unfold. Stone watched as the massive ship began to fragment, pieces of it breaking off into space like shattered glass. Elijah's voice crackled through their comms. "You did it. The Star Annihilator is destroyed. The fleet is in chaos. The Aethar are retreating, at least for now." Stone allowed himself a brief breath, but it was far from over. The Aethar might have been thrown into disarray, but they were not defeated. This war had only just begun. The damage to Earth's surface was still unknown, and the Aethar would not let go of their ambition so easily. "We've won this round," Stone said, staring out into the void of space, his eyes steely with resolve. "But this isn't the end. We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to take our planet back." Samira Hayes looked at him, her expression unreadable, but her voice steady. "And we'll fight until they understand that Earth isn't theirs to conquer." As the fighter sped away into the dark expanse of space, the first real victory for humanity echoed across the stars. The Aethar had underestimated them, underrated the tenacity, the ingenuity, and the unbreakable will of a species determined to survive. But the war was far from over. Humanity had fought, and they had won. Now they would make the invaders understand one thing: never underestimate Earth. And the galaxy would never forget the day that humanity rose, silent but deadly, to stand against the stars.